and I'd like to welcome to our panel on data-driven demand generation. So again, we've heard a lot about data is a big lever in a model of digital marketing. We're going to talk very specifically about data-driven demand generation in the middle of that funnel. I'm joined by 3 leading-edge marketers from firms that bring a variety of perspectives on ways to use data analytics to do several things. 1, we're going to talk about developing highly targeted audiences. 2, how we use data to plan and deploy every aspect of a complicated omni-channel campaign. And 3rd, how can data and analytics help us optimize those campaigns, the offers within them, the leads they generate, and the resources we allocate to them. So I'm joined by Cheryl Markoff, who leads, conveniently, demand generation and performance at Northern Trust. She is going to target some very narrow audiences. I'm also joined by Jem Thomas, Director of Marketing at Discover, perhaps a little bit of a broader audience, I'd say. And then Nick is a client partner at Snapchat. They represent an incremental channel, and you bring the experience of hundreds of different marketing organizations with large markets, small markets, and some very interesting data. So I want to jump right in. I've done a very brief and probably terrible introduction of our panelists. However, I want to do my usual 2-part introduction. Please introduce yourselves in the context of your business model, but specifically how you are using data to augment and accelerate your unique go-to-market model. And if you have one secret, where is the point of leverage and scale in your model? Of course, we're going to dig into this, but I'd love everyone to know your superpower and what's unique and wonderful about you guys. So why don't you guys start?
Sure. Thanks, Stephen. Hi, everyone. I'm Cheryl. Nice to meet you. I've been at Northern Trust for 21 years. We are a large firm headquartered in Chicago. We have 1.7 trillion in assets under management. We service some of the world's most successful and sophisticated clients across wealth management, asset management, and asset servicing. Most of the examples I'm going to give today focus more on that wealth management track, where we've done a lot of the groundwork for the last, I would probably say 3 to 5 years in building out this complete end-to-end journey and measurement in the back end for our paid advertising program. We are measuring lower funnel lead generation activities, those tactics where we are bringing prospects through gated content from our paid opportunities with blue chip publishers, so think of Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Bloomberg. We also do a lot of native with some of the more bespoke advertisers to feature the content where it makes sense. And I can give some examples of those campaigns. So we're measuring those prospects as they come through. We use Marketo for our marketing automation program. We measure leads as they come into the Marketo program, the marketing qualified process, sales qualified into Salesforce, and importantly, the not qualified as well, because we're constantly optimizing our campaigns, both from a content perspective, publishers, creative. We're starting to do more A/B testing, trying to optimize our landing pages. So it really is an end-to-end process in that lead journey, optimization, and that handshake between marketing and sales.
Well, what I find compelling about you is that you're using data in so many ways. You talked about how you're using it for lead flow, but you're also using it for defining content, improving your speed to market, figuring out how you best work with your agencies, and how to get more miles per gallon out of your tech stack. So I'm super excited to hear more about that. But Jem, why don't you talk a little bit about how it all works at Discover?
So till a few months back, I was leading the marketing for Discover Home Loans and responsible for all the acquisition efforts. So all the media campaigns, nurturing and engagement campaigns, as well as the analytics behind it and the website portion of it. In terms of, as a marketer, we've always known that it was not about us and not about our product, and it is really about the customer and what they want. And we have sat through endless focus groups on how the customer really wants a personalized experience solving their personal financial problem. At Discover, our mission has been to build a brighter financial future for the customer, right? And as a marketer, we have known that we couldn't deliver that at scale and at cost. And we are at a very special place in with tech and analytics right now, where we can actually deliver that at scale. And so this is very exciting that we can do that. In Discover, how we use data, I mean, we have a lot of first-party data for a lot of customers. So we're able to use all that information for segmentation, but also and targeting, so building response models, but also for personalization. So we can use a combination of first-party data and third-party data that we buy, combine those together to create really relevant messages and even next best offers. In terms of the second place that we really use data is to think about how we are optimizing and what are the signals we are optimizing towards. So it's not about clicks, it's not about bringing the traffic to the website. Is about creating an experience that helps people convert and stay with us and create profitable customers. So we are not only we are looking at the credit, we are looking at their conversion from application to funded, we are looking at where they are falling out, and creating predictive models that feed all that data back into the front end. So there's a lot of effort and thought put into what signals we are using and optimizing towards. And the last but not the least, using all the tools available in our partner platforms. So we are in Google, we are on all the big platforms, including social media. And Snap can talk about incremental testing and ROAS testing and value-based bidding. We're using all of that and trying to understand how these different models help us do what we want to do best for our customers. So investing a lot of time in creating those feedback loops is another way that we use data.
So Jen, you're really remarkable in that just the depth and breadth of data you have and the complexity and mix of channels, including our good friends at Snap. And so maybe Nick can talk a little bit about what you contribute to the equation, because you're a very interesting fellow.
Definitely, thank you. Yeah, my name is Nick Janner. I'm a lead financial service client partner at Snapchat. Been there for about 5 years. Have really partnered across the financial service industry with national and regional banks, insurance companies, as well as a lot of fintech companies like Robinhood, SoFi, Betterment, Coinbase, a few others. It's a really interesting time in this space as well. I feel like the most common question we've been getting the last couple of days is, why is Snapchat here? So I'm definitely glad to shed a little bit of light on that, as well as we are a full service offered platform for advertising opportunities. And when we look at that too with the Snapchat audience, I think one of the biggest things I hear from advertisers is we need to reach a new audience. We can't just put all of our eggs in a couple baskets that might not work for the long term, or you're looking for new, younger users maybe. So where are you going to invest those extra dollars? At Snapchat, we have around 98 million daily active users in the US. When you take a step back, we're actually approaching 1 billion global users as well. So it's a really massive audience at scale that you can tap into. And data and AI is really at the core of what we do. When you think of these platforms, that is driving the algorithm that your ads are being served under. And so really, when we look at the importance of data, it starts with your signal setup. And so I'm excited to talk a little bit more about the advancements of that. And as well as, since AI has been a part of Snap and a part of these platforms for a long time, I think a really exciting thing is how AI is able to actually be a tactical tool for advertisers to use, from a campaign setup process, creative, insights as well. So there's a lot of different areas that you can actually now easily have hands-on access within an ads manager platform, not just for Snap, but for all platforms. And so I think there's a really cool way to be able to relieve some of that stress if you are looking to test new incremental platforms. We also see that Snapchatters are really leaned into financial services too. We have really high adoption rates. I believe right around 62 million Snapchatters have made a lower funnel conversion event on a financial service website. I also work with app-based advertisers too, which in a post-ATT iOS 14 world is even a more confusing conversation when you talk about data and making sure that your campaigns are set up. So definitely excited to share a little bit more of insights of how you can really make sure that your data is clean and passing back, as well as you're using the right tools and optimizing to the right events, and not just maybe a reach or click campaign, but actually optimizing towards that demand generation event in the platform.
Oh, that's awesome. There's a lot here, obviously, and let's start to unpack it. Let's start with one of my favorite topics, audience. And I get confused a lot. There's a big duality in audience. I get excited because data allows me to shrink the bullseye. I'm a shrink the bullseye person. I know that if I have an addressable market of 100 people, 5% of them are probably in market at any given time. I work with my clients all the time. They're advertising to people in zip codes where they don't have retail or distribution. There's an endless opportunity to shrink the bullseye. I love that. More wood behind fewer arrows. But I also like, some of my clients may be CEOs, but they could be gamers or sailors or farmers or whatever, and they could be in different places. I love the notion that there's a lookalike client. My client might be somewhere else. So I get torn between using data to shrink the bullseye, to get more wood behind one arrow, really dominate with the few people I have, but also the brand, moving up from making sure that my brand is in all the places where prospective clients could be. So, Cheryl, you're doing some interesting things, targeting audiences. What, you market to, 15 people in the world?
Right. Yeah, it's
so
pretty small.
You're a shrink the bullseye person.
Yeah, our bullseye, mining for gold is what we say internally.
And personalization of the audience.
Yeah, so our target this year for wealth was 10 million and above in investable assets, so not even net worth. So it's a pretty small target. That said, there's a lot of wealth in the U.S., so we still have a lot of advertising to do.
I get your ads all the time.
Right. And the challenge is it's a long cycle. So we're not a retail bank. You can't open an account online. That cycle of when we get a lead in to when they start to actually have conversations, once they're qualified, once they reach the threshold, sometimes that can take a year. So we are using data enrichment to try and fast track, but that's a very low match rate based on data that's available in the wild. And when we can fast track, obviously we hand off immediately, and that does happen. Believe it or not, they come through these channels. Search being one of our largest channels that feeds leads into us. But we are playing around with psychographic and trying to target, so not just targeting, because we do believe, we are trying to test into different channels, but we also believe it's got to be the right mindset. So trying to match the trigger of why people would, they're experiencing some kind of life event. They are approaching retirement. They're going to sell their business. They want to create a legacy. There's something happening where it's causing them, they're not happy with their current provider. They want, more information on alternatives. There's something that is prompting the research or the pull on the information. We have great thought leadership content to meet that moment. So that's really, I think we're triangulating on a number of things. So as much as we want to test into new channels, it's got to make sense for the mindset that the person is in. So we are toying with more psychographic information to try and narrow that target even further with, again, some third-party information that can help bring that field in even closer. We're doing that through the digital programmatic because that's the best place we can play around with that test to see if that helps get more qualified, more pointed match with the content and the audience.
I'd love some examples. I once set up a program with IDS, an old name in the industry, where there was a network of nurses who were delivering babies, and they gave that information to financial advisors so they could show up with a fruit basket, big life event. I always love to hear great examples of how you're teasing out life triggers. Like when I paid my daughter's tuition, my last kid, that was a big life event. I was officially an empty nester, and now I've got to find a hobby. And a raison d'etre. So do you have any examples of how you've been able to tease out some triggers?
Using data. So we are also trying to do it with a data-driven approach. I would love to, we're currently working on a project to match the prospect and the first-party data that we have in-house so I can better understand once a prospect converts to a client, what did they actually convert on? What was the trigger to try and create a more holistic view of the persona of who I'm going after? We have a lot of assumptions that we're going after. Business owners are an attractive profile for us because they have things to take care of on the business side. They have personal wealth, family wealth, et cetera. So, but I would like to actually know if those assumptions are coming to fruition when they actually onboard to become a client, because a lot of times that data is breaking between systems and or teams. So we're trying to connect that all through a customer data platform this year through a big project. So my view will get a lot more holistic. One of the things we look at, though, when we look at our lead data is our percentage of from lead to sales qualified, those ratios. And interestingly, we have a track of content focused on art collecting. So they have very specific needs around art collecting, how to gift an art collection or create a legacy around art collecting. We have a very specific advisory practice internally that can help advise our clientele on that. That was the highest SQL, so the percentage of leads that convert to sales qualified leads of all the content tracks. Not a large volume, but really high percentage of those that were qualified. So I was like, oh, well, let's try a heavy up on art this year. So we have great creative on it as well. So we did a heavy up around the art festivals around the country with placements that aligned to when people would be consuming content around that. So it was not that expensive either. So we did some placements and publications focused on, again, aligning the content with thought leadership that's gated, trying to get more leads through, and so far it's been pretty
A
successful.
couple things that she said that I really like. Nothing on earth, the lights here, the food we're eating, or, the drugs we're taking would be here without the scientific method, which is asking a question, testing that question with data, seeing if you're right. So I really find that really compelling. Second, a buddy of mine just bought all the art storage in America, so I think I got a list for you.
There you
if you
go.
want.
Thanks.
So that'd be great. Jem, data and attribute data about people is probably not a problem for you. Why don't you talk a little bit more about how you think about audiences and use data to either shrink them or find new ones?
Yeah, we have a large data set, but obviously we don't want to bombard them with information. And so we have to use that data responsibly, right? So we want to make sure that the right information is getting in front of them at the right time, and that involves a lot of modeling. So we do a lot of data drops, see who responds to which product, since we also have multiple products that we offer, and then use those response models to figure out whom we want to go after. We also make sure that we target them in the right channels. So we look at which channels has customers or certain people have responded previously. So whether it's through email, direct mail, through our owned assets, through digital assets, and we use that as well to further inform as to where exactly we want to target them. So there is a lot of okay, we have a large audience set, how do we shrink them? But then like Cheryl mentioned, I mean, there are people who are in the state or have a need state and it's hovering in that need state for a long time. And since, the gentleman before us also mentioned, financial services, most of our products are commodity products. So it's not the product itself, it's a whole experience there where we differentiate, right? So making sure that we are available to the customer during the shopping cycle, that becomes important too. So how do we respond? We get in front of them, understand if they are in. For us, it is basically about debt consolidation or home improvement, or a very small section of people actually borrow the loan, take the loan to fund like a wedding or something along those lines. So understanding what are those triggers and being involved in that life journey becomes a part of what we do as well.
Awesome. Nick, you lived inside a very privileged walled garden, and you hang out with all those young people who are going to get these $84 trillion of assets that come from Bessemer. So tell us a little bit about how we should be thinking about data, and I think you've got some interesting trends to share too.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like I mentioned, we have nearly 100 million daily active users here in the US, so that's a large audience, and how do you tap into it efficiently with the dollars that you do have for testing a new platform? And I think when we look at that, I also want to take a step back, and I know, many of you in this room might be on Snapchat because your kids are on Snapchat, but what we actually see is that over a majority of our audience is 25 and above, with actually around a quarter of our audience being 35 plus, and that is actually the fastest growing cohort on our platform right now. I think what's interesting is that because it's such a wide audience, there really is room to be able to find that niche. And if you are looking for a very specific audience of a high net income, then maybe that is reason to bring in some of our first and third party categories to find and make sure you're hitting a household income of a certain level. If you know that's a specific niche that you need to hit, or maybe you have a specific campaign objective that you're trying to reach an audience. But I really think when it comes back to data as well, what I really encourage is if you have good signal strength, once again, that's the first conversation I'm having with advertisers before we're talking about creative, before we're talking about media or campaign setup. It's going to be their signals, their attribution methodology, what different data sources are you taking in, are you utilizing MMM or MTA on top of your source of truth? Are you pulling that in? Are you using platform data? There's a lot of different ways that you can kind of splice that data. And so it's really important to just make sure that, the signals that you're sending back to any platform is as clean as possible, because that's going to be the basis of what that performance you're going to see on that platform is going to be. And so with that, we have tools that will kind of show you that good strength versus okay versus poor. So that's really at the core of it. And I think once you have that signal set up, you can start kind of diving into the audience a little bit more. If you have some events tracking, you can actually pull that into something like our Audience Insights tool, be able to see what your actual customer, your current customer is and how they're indexing on the platform. I think for Snap and a lot of the financial service advertisers I work with, we find really great success with kind of that emerging earner. So that 25, even up to 44 has been a really sweet spot for us. And we actually see with some of our investing clients that they actually have the highest ROI on our platform. And that really goes back to the data-driven insights that we're able to provide and find and optimize off of. I would also say if you have a broader audience and you have good signal strength, I'll definitely stress that second part. Don't be afraid to test a broad targeting. I think oftentimes these algorithms, when they have that data, are actually able to find and have a more likely chance of getting a bite within that pond if there's more fish to fish from. So, really being able to set up the core of your efforts with strong signal strength is going to be the key to that. And then finding those audience insights once we have those events passing back. And obviously, with financial services, there's a lot of questions and risk around that privacy and security. So it's also making sure that you're finding the right solution to track your performance. Obviously, we have pixels that you can place, but maybe if you're not able to because of your internal compliance team, look at something like a server-server integration, like Conversions API. That gives you a lot more control to pass back certain parameters that you're okay with and allowing us to utilize that from an optimization perspective. If you're an app advertiser, making sure that you're properly setting up your MMP. Snap was one of the first platforms to actually roll out advanced SRN or self-reporting network with a lot of the major MMPs. So it actually allows you now to be able to utilize both opt-in and opt-out data through a privacy-centric mindset that's compliant with iOS 14. So I really, once again, just want to hone in on that importance of building your signals is going to be the key to the success you're going to see.
I think that's rich. You guys know me well enough probably now that if you asked any one of my clients, the first thing they say is, that guy, Steve, he's a big pain in the neck, or perhaps something more colorful. And it's true, because I go in and say, why aren't we targeting new-to-the-world businesses? I came up with 47, segments, and I have data sources to support them, and we can say something unique to all of them. And the answer is, that's going to take a long time, a lot of manual effort. It's going to be expensive, and I'm going to have to hang out with you more, so that's going to make it even more painful. But the reality is, anything cool, targeted, personalized that we do involves dealing with you and many other partners, personalizing content, and it's a lot of work, placing media in really narrow places, teasing out signals. So how are we using data to improve? I think speed to market, everyone can lay out something cool. Getting it to market's the hard part. Doing it cost effectively is key. How are you guys using data on those dimensions to streamline and speed up the execution of these really cool programs?
Yeah, I could kick that one off.
Sure.
I think kind of teeing off of the signals I was just talking about, we have rolled out a full, smart solution stack that is really enhanced with AI. And so I think when you're thinking, especially, I know bandwidth is a big concern that we hear from a lot of advertisers as they're looking to test new platforms and really figuring out where they can put that effort as well. And so with that, we've tried really hard to make this as seamless of a process for onboarding and getting campaigns launched. So with those smart solutions, you can actually even have the platform build out the campaign for you based on the signals you have set up, as well as the goal or objective that you chose. But then we also have, if you want to be a little bit more hands-on, which I would definitely encourage, you can also have a lot of different tools to access, things like smart targeting. So if you want to layer on those targeting parameters but want to reach a little bit of a broader audience, it'll actually serve as a lookalike audience and bring in other Snapchatters that are going to resemble those who are actually currently converting on your campaigns. And a big one for us has been our smart bidding model, which we recently revamped our target cost, which actually allows you to set the CPA that you want to see on your campaigns and be able to achieve that at scale once again, really important to have strong signal strength with that to be able to optimize efficiently and as best as possible. But really leaning into these tools just to take a little bit of the guesswork off of advertisers and allow them an easier process. And then even once that campaign is live, you'll actually get recommendations surfaced in the ad account as well. Maybe if you are hitting your CPA consistently and we think we can scale budget and hit X amount of users, you can actually opt into that. Or maybe you need to decrease that and it's running a little hot. They'll provide the recommendations as well. So once again, just taking a little bit of that guesswork out and making it an easier process to start. And even how we've seen some of those tools utilized with like the target cost bidding model, it's also able to utilize less data to calibrate faster, which just allows a little bit less of that cold start when you are testing a new platform, because we know a lot of stakeholders want to see those results immediately. So this allows you to get there faster and more consistently as well.
Beyond just the media deployment, we got to plan, we got to develop content, we got to test offers, we got to get agencies working at a pace that's not after Thanksgiving. We heard yesterday. Is anyone using data for some of those more mundane but slower things, reducing the time and cost of planning, improving content processes?
Well, I can chime in and Cheryl can jump in, and so can Nick. I mean, Nick's using the platforms and the abilities available in those platforms are definitely a good way to get started in a new platform. So instead of trying to do everything firsthand, we do try to just at least test a little bit and sprinkle a little bit and see what comes out, and then figure out where we want to invest time. So Nick, thanks for that. I think that's a lot of what we do when we enter new platforms is trying to use the capabilities in the platform first. In terms of speeding up our operations, it's really important to have a good process first. So, we put a lot of effort into making sure that our process is defined, repeatable, and the data is stored consistently in some place before we can figure out how do we automate this, right? Now, how do we throw it into a automation engine? How do we create like a model around it? I mean, obviously AI is coming and we can do a lot more with all that data, but if all the information is in people's head and everybody does it very differently, it is hard to figure out how to make it quicker and faster and more automated. So a lot of effort that we put into is adopting a lot of agile Scrum practices from the tech and implementing those rituals and processes and data collection in our processes so that we can then make it more repeatable and faster. So I'm sure.
Yeah, I also think being realistic. So, like when we go into a buy with a publisher, that if they want to place a pixel on the site, I know it's going to take me longer to get that approved through my internal channels than the buy will actually run. So, like, I can't use that as an indicator of success or feedback, success criteria. So, like, what other ways are we going to use to determine success for this? So, it's always a blend. So, relying heavily on the agency for part of it, for regular performance reporting. We have an internal cross collaboration that we do monthly where we just throw out a question or two in that month to solve for. And it could be any part of the campaign that and usually I'm the one asking the question, but it's more like, okay, 65% bounce rate on our highest, best performing content program for the landing page. Is that acceptable? Like, why is that happening? Or why aren't we offering the next best action for someone to take? Just teasing out a hypothesis or question for the team. And that's my analytics person, the marketing lead from the marketing team, my lead person who handles that lead journey and lead process and nurture programming in Marketo. So it's cross collaboration. It's someone else from the marketing team who's a little deeper in some of the analytics and what's happening on the journey on the website. And we're just tossing out questions or hypotheses to kind of work that challenge over the course of that month before the next meeting. And so that's how we're trying to get to optimization within our four walls. The agency is responsible more for the reporting, making sure the publishers are delivering. They're responsible for more exact readout, and then kind of in between optimization and running challenges on the actual buy and performance of what we're running. So we kind of hit it from multiple angles. We look at content performance on a regular basis. Shutting off is as important as what we are running. So we also look at, especially on search, and sometimes it's cyclical, time of year, sometimes it's regional. Like we will do tests based on parts of the country, like our entrepreneur content performed extremely well in our San Francisco market. So it's like, okay, let's flight that up. But like, you got to look at signals of what's happening in real life and react quickly. In April, we threw everything at market volatility, changed out creative quickly. That meant we had to turn things. I didn't get more budget to do that. It was like we had to turn programming off, turn programming on. We already had the creative ready. We know there's market volatility that happens every year for different reasons. So it's like we quickly adjusted the call to action, and marketing had the thought leadership ready to go on tariffs and what it meant and what was happening in the market. So, it's just kind of like knowing there's like an ebb and flow to some of these things and being ready with those tools that you have. It's just deploying it for different reasons, depending on what's going on.
I just want to double up on something Cheryl said about, inviting multiple teams to the table. So that's superbly important, and we've missed a lot of opportunity by not doing it. So some of the efforts that I've been taking is to bring the analytics to the front, bringing the tech team to the front. I mean, when they don't understand what the platforms are and they don't understand what we're interacting with and what the problems are, they can't contribute from their knowledge set, right? We don't know everything they know. So just dictating answers to them is not a good way to use them. And so bringing all these different teams to the front. And I would also throw in regulatory fluency into the mix, because regulatory fluency,
Yes.
so understanding regulations really well. As a marketer, we've kind of also delegated that to the lawyers for a long time, but we can't do that anymore. If we want to innovate and we want to make things faster, we want to do new things, it is important that we understand regulations and we invite those partners to the table too. So bringing that said, and when I was talking about agile and all that, that's part of the motivation, was to make sure that we have all the right heads at the table. And we, as marketers, are becoming this, we are not the master of everything, but we are definitely a jack of all trades and understand a little bit of everything, where we know whom to invite when.
Jem and Cheryl are making a really important point. I don't want to editorialize. You used the word "we." You are framing the question, the hypothesis, the outcome, the goal, or what could be improved. But I'm hearing there are a lot of stakeholders here, including the agencies. General Stanley McChrystal wrote a great book called Team of Teams. And it's basically, he had to get Army, Navy, all sorts of people working together to win the war on terror. They were incredibly slow. They were being outrun by smart people in caves. And the way he solved it was with data. He created a common data foundation that everybody on the team, the Marines, the helicopter pilots, the diplomats, the legal guys, everyone looked at it every day. And you remind me of him in that you're asking questions to a flat organization, ideally, with the compliance people in the room, the agencies in the room, saying, this is the data we're all looking at. This is our common understanding of what we can and cannot do. I'm asking the question that gets us focused. How can this be better? What about those 65% who aren't answering? So I want to come back to the we. One, sharing data horizontally across the organization is a really, really important thing. Two, getting everybody to look at it and have a conversation about it, because they live in silos and the lawyers are going to come back in 4 weeks and tell you no anyhow.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about how you're able to share that data horizontally, and when you say we, what's that room look like? How often does that happen?
So, and I think the one we haven't mentioned is sales. So I know for me, that's a huge part of the equation, because ultimately, what does success look like for the business? The business doesn't even care anymore about leads. They care about what did it result in. So we track all the way through opportunity size and then ultimately one business, which admittedly is a very long process. We just had a lead from 2022 convert into one business. So we got to store the data, we got to report on it and make sure we close the loop for a very long cycle potentially, but it's what have you done for me lately? So it's like the business doesn't care that we're up on leads year over year. What is it resulting in? We have to, and as soon as you stop that connectivity, it falls apart. Like the train gets completely derailed. So yeah, leads are up. Well, guess what? None of the salespeople are actioning these leads. They're not putting in call reports. They don't look at them as valued, warm opportunities. why am I advertising? So like that relationship between marketing and sales is critical, and we have to kind of keep working that challenge to make sure they're getting the information they need, and it's got to happen faster and at scale and personalized. So we are looking at some new opportunities. How does AI, fit in the mix to augment the human experience of what people on the ground are doing? How can we do it more at scale to kind of bridge that gap between the activities where marketing starts and stops and sales picks up and takes the
You're
baton?
solving a big problem. There's a recency bias, which is human. You show me a sales meeting, everyone's going to attribute it to activities in the last quarter. When I'll look at any sales quarter, and there are bluebirds coming in from 4 quarters before, coming out of thin air, coming out of some interaction that was unattributed. So everyone wants to have 100% attribution of something that happened this quarter, but having that data fluency lets people be aware there are other actions and things going on. We can't leave this panel without discussing the AI in the room, the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Arguably, AI makes all of this stuff better, faster, bigger. Using AI as an overlay, how would you say AI is or is going to make your audience optimization speed? Where's it going to turbocharge this process?
Guess I will start.
Start.
I feel like I already touched on it a little bit, but yeah, I mean, I think being on the platform side, we have benefited from AI for many, many years at this point. And I think, like I mentioned earlier, it's really about how can we now use AI to make advertising easier, especially for onboarding those new and incremental platforms. So when we think about even a lot of the recommendations that are going to be serviced to you when you are setting up your account, setting up your signals, creating your campaign, there's going to be real-time recommendations based on what we know already of you and what you've given us of what we might recommend. And so that can even be as variety of different ways, even from like a creative perspective. We are now rolling out image to video capabilities, so you can actually just upload your static images and actually add animation behind it. I've even seen one with pet insurance where the dog started running around the ad. Pretty crazy, but pretty cool stuff. So even as simple as that of just helping you have more creatives to be able to test with, because we know that creative testing can be really important, and that creative rotation is key to really keeping success throughout. And then even things like those smart solutions that I was talking about, being able to set your target costs and making sure that campaign is actually optimizing towards that specific CPA so that we are able to hit the benchmarks that your team has set is really crucial as well. So yeah, you'll start seeing that really from the second that you create an account all the way to activating, and as you ramp up, that AI is going to be driven in every part of that platform and really just trying to make it easier for you as an advertiser to take the guesswork out. So it's been really cool to see how that has evolved over time.
Well, I mean, AI is going to be a part of everything, and I think we've already heard a lot about how it's going to change creatives, how it's going to make everything faster, and in analytics. There are a few aspects of AI, though, in financial services where we should pay some attention. One is the compliance and the regulatory aspect of AI. So, how do we adopt it? And as being champions of how much value we can extract out of it, it is important for us to be at the table and help figure out how we can make it compliance safe. So that becomes a big part of the conversation on how we do. And the other part of it is really about re-engineering our teams and reskilling our teams. So the gentleman who spoke before us, and probably even before that too, spoke about how we have all this tech downloaded at the front of our gates without knowing how to use it. And so we basically use only 5% of it. And I'm sure all of us, you can replace Salesforce with another company and it'll be the same answer. It's kind of, we don't use Salesforce, but we have the same problem. So our tech teams kind of solve the problems they think need to be solved. But we are not able to really get value out of it because the last mile is not there. So the people who need to use it, the use cases that need to be unlocked with it, and all that is not clear. And so retraining the team that we have in understanding tech, data, use cases, and how to unlock those, and bringing our agency partners along when doing that is important, because even any of this breaks, then we are not able to get all the value out of it. So really bringing those conversations to the front and really retraining and reskilling the team has been a big part of our conversations right now.
So we're using it for content. So just trying to get speed to market, shift the spend away from content creation, whether that's external agency support and or internal creative production. We have an internal team that spends a fair amount of time on creative production. So however it can help in the generative process of supporting the program. MarTech Stack is obviously bringing capabilities. So some of that psychographic targeting or targeting contextual placements, so finding the moments where and trying to match our content to content in the wild is being powered by some AI capabilities, which is pretty cool. Data, so I think will be the big unlock, and possibly creating AI agents in marketing to help analyze and report on and create insights. So I think that's where we're heading, to try and scale literally the team that we have, because we're not getting more resources, but we have more campaigns. The campaigns are more complex. They need to run faster and be more, powered by more sophisticated insights and more personalized. So I think it's going to come from multiple fronts. The previous session, I was furiously taking notes. We got our first leads coming from ChatGPT a few months ago, and every month the bar chart is growing exponentially. So it's pretty wild to see that it's happening without any concerted effort on our part, which is good and bad, because it's, again, what we're not doing that keeps me up at night, not necessarily what we can do better. So I don't want to lose opportunity or, have missed opportunity. So it's going to be, multifaceted, kind of just new fabric of how we do our work and deploy programming and run our
It's a
stack.
loaded question.
Yeah.
I started us early, I'm ending us late. We have yogurt parfaits next door, and I know everyone's dying for one of those. I have time for a few questions, but again, we're going to roll right into break after this. So, any questions of our wonderful panel?
Cheryl, I was curious, you were talking about bar charts and how you guys are seeing it climb the GEO. What are you using to get the bar charts?
So we do a lot of reporting using Power BI. The agency is also providing the monthly report with consultation from my team and the marketing team. So that is a collaborative effort, so they don't make inferences in a vacuum, for some of the data points that they're seeing, like they're reporting on some indicators of success, like traffic to the website. That's not all attributed to our program's efforts. There's other things happening external to our program, obviously, things like quarterly earnings, merger rumors, that led to a spike in traffic. So we just have to counter data with the commentary of what our talk track is up to. That's an exec level report. We use Google Analytics 4 for reporting. The agency has a pixel, so they have a cookieless method to track. So they're also able to tell us how much is bot traffic versus human. Not all the bot traffic is bad, because that serves a purpose. But they're also looking at firmographic data, which is super helpful, especially on the institutional side, like what firms are actually coming to visit the site, which is interesting for the sales team. So it's multifaceted, always on.
Thank you.
You guys want to roll into break and get those yogurt parfaits? This is a great panel. I want to thank you guys. And
Thanks,
I would
Stephen.
encourage you to
Thank
come
you.
back. Thanks so much.
Yep.